The Compiègne Wagon, also known as the armistice carriage. This train carriage was a place of significant history during World War I and World War II. The armistice of November 11, 1918 was signed aboard this carriage in Compiègne in northern France, marking the defeat of Germany and victory for the Entente powers. Germany was the last Central Power to sign an armistice. The train carriage was the personal carriage of French General Ferdinand Foch, who had overseen the armistice. After the war, it would become a monument of victory for the French, for a time. In 1940, the carriage would be used again for an armistice. This time the French were the defeated. On the order of Adolf Hitler, the train was moved to the exact spot of the World War I armistice, and on June 22, 1940, a second armistice was signed. Negotiations began the previous day, with Hitler in attendance. Here he is walking to the carriage, looking at a statue of Ferdinand Foch, commemorating Germany's capitulation. On June 21st, Hitler sat in the same chair where General Ferdinand Foch had sat, when he faced the representatives of a defeated Germany. Hitler, as Foch had done, exited the carriage in a show of contempt, leaving negotiations to General Wilhelm Keitel and French General Charles Hunsinger, the final signing taking place the next day. The previous signing of the November 11, 1918 armistice was a bitter end to a bitter war, the worst humanity had ever seen. None of the bitterness captured in the movie All Quiet on the Western Front was any sort of exaggeration. The French suffered near 6 million casualties by the end of the war, 1.4 million dead, 4.2 million wounded. When Foch gave terms of the armistice to the Germans, they were non-negotiable. They amounted to complete demilitarization of Germany, Allied occupation of the Rhineland, the surrender of war material, including trains, eventual reparations, no immediate release of German prisoners, and most harshly, given food shortages in Germany, no relaxation of the naval blockade. Germany was in a position of weakness during the negotiations. Germany was starving, without allies, and facing open revolt. During the negotiations on November 10, 1918, the Germans were shown newspapers from Paris, informing them the Kaiser had abdicated, fleeing Germany for Holland. Representing Germany during the negotiations was Matthias Erzberger, a member of the Centre Party and elected member of the Reichstag. Erzberger was chosen as negotiator by Prince Maximilian von Baden, who in October and November of 1918 briefly served as the last chancellor of the German Empire. Erzberger was chosen because he was a Catholic civilian with a reputation as a man of peace. Erzberger, like many civilians who took part in the peace process, was accused by extremist organizations after World War I of betraying Germany. Hitler named Erzberger as one of the conspirators that stabbed Germany in the back, refusing to believe Germany was militarily defeated. Erzberger was falsely accused of corruption after the war and in 1921 assassinated by a terrorist group. The armistice documents were signed at 5:45 a.m. to take effect at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. It's believed this may have led to some 11,000 additional men being wounded or killed during this time. However, it's hard to say how quickly the message of an immediate ceasefire would have spread. The final battle in All Quiet on the Western Front depicts a fictitious battle meant to represent these last few hours of the war. Officially, the last World War I battle was the Battle of Mons, when Canadians liberated the Belgian town. The battle produced the last official casualty of the war, Private George Price, who was hit in the chest by a sniper. He died at 10:58 a.m., 2 minutes before the armistice went into effect. The signing of the armistice aboard this humble train carriage brought to a close a war that cost 20 million lives. The carriage began its life in May of 1914 in Saint Denis as a dining car, number 2419D. It was built using beautiful varnished teak wood. After World War I, it briefly returned to service as a dining car and was eventually attached to the French presidential train. In 1921, it was put on exhibit in Paris before being fully restored, moved to a specially created shelter in Compiègne, near the exact site of the World War I armistice. During World War II, while in German hands, it would be moved to Berlin, displayed as a war trophy, before being moved to Krawinkel for safekeeping. As the Americans neared the town, the train was destroyed, possibly by an Allied bombardment or by the SS. No doubt Hitler did not want to risk yet another humiliation aboard the train for Germany, by whatever government would come after him. The armistice site in Compiègne was destroyed on Hitler's orders, 3 days after the signing of the 1940 armistice. But the French would rebuild the site after the war, and the train carriage would further live on, using a renumbered and refinished car built in the same series. Alright, I'm Johnny. Thanks for staying on track with me to the end of the video. As always, take care and have a nice rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.